Welcome to Weekend Wisdom. Weekend Wisdom is put on by the nonprofit creatingafamily.org. It is the second in our lineup of podcasts. We have a long-form podcast, which is just called Creating a Family. Let's talk about foster, adoptive, and kinship care. And then we have Weekend Wisdom. Weekend Wisdom is our chance to answer your questions. It's much shorter, usually about 5 minutes or so. And we rely on your questions that you send in, and each week we pick one to answer. So send us your questions to info@creatingafamily.org. Today's question comes from Cleveland, Ohio. She said, this person says, don't know if it's a male or a female. Is it important to keep a young child or baby's birth given name? How often, if ever, do expectant mothers let adopting parents name the child in private adoptions? I'm going to answer this question separately for newborns and young child, because she mentioned young children, and then she also mentioned newborns. So for newborn, first of all, this is something that should be discussed during the matching process between the prospective adoptive parents and the expectant mom. This is something that should be talked about. But to specifically answer your question about how is it common, the answer is it's very common for the adoptive parents to name the child, keeping in mind that the expectant parents may want input. But often it is something that is discussed and talked about and coming up to a mutual agreement. However, ultimately keep in mind that it is the parent's decision, meaning the birth parent's decision on what the child's name will be on the birth certificate. After birth, the parents have not yet relinquished their parental rights, and they are the parents, and they will be the ones filling out the birth certificate, and they will put on the name that they choose. If you have talked with them ahead of time, they may be putting the name that you chose or that you mutually agreed upon as all of you who are involved. The adoptive parents can change the child's name when the adoption is finalized and they receive an amended birth certificate. So ultimately, it would be your choice because you can always change it at that point. However, in an ideal world, this is something that is talked about between the expectant parents, or if it's after birth, the birth parents and the prospective adoptive parents. All right, so now let's talk about a young child. It's somewhat dependent on the age of the child, but generally, once a child is past infancy, it seems to me the standard practice is the child keeps the first name but changes the last name to reflect the last name of the adopting family. Now, there can be some things that would change that. One, if the adoptive parents have very strong feelings about a name, or they feel the name has really negative attributes and that they wouldn't want the child to have, or the child may have the same name as somebody else in the family. But even in all of those situations, the child could be called by a nickname or a middle name to avoid actually changing the child's name. Another time where we see it come up is if the family has a naming tradition where, let's say, every child has, all the children's first names begin with an A or something like that, and the feeling is that they may want to try to keep the naming tradition so that the new child coming in feels more included within the family. I guess the bottom line would be that if the child is old enough, certainly the child needs to have input and buy-in. And also, depending on the situation, if the biological parents are involved, then they also, it seems like a kind thing to do to loop them into this discussion as well before you would make this decision. I hope this has been helpful for our audience member from Cleveland. So thank you. And before everyone leaves, let me remind you that we really would appreciate, we really need your reviews for this podcast. You'd be reviewing both the Weekend Wisdom and the Creating a Family podcast. It's the same. So whatever app you're listening to, if you could go to that app at the very in the show notes, there is a rate and review this podcast. If you click on it, it takes almost no time at all. We would appreciate a star rating. We would even more appreciate it if you give us a written review. But either we would be very happy with. So please consider that. And also, let your friends know about this podcast. Tell them, encourage them to listen. They can subscribe at the creatingafamily.org podcast. And we will see you next week.